Right, this is where we left it in the first part of the video and alter the framework, but I actually had an idea, and my first idea is, let's just get rid of this for a second. I'm just going to grab hold of it, I'm going to drag, and I'm going to put it in the bin. That is what we created. That's our map border. Why don't we save this, and then you can use it on other pictures. It'll save the whole sort of going through that process of remaking it. So if we come up to File, we can drop down to Save As. We're going to call this, I'm just going to put my cursor in there, I'm going to call it Mats. And Border 1, I think, will be a good title, so just bringing that through. There it is. Where am I going to save it? Yeah, I'm actually using my laptop for this particular one, so I'm going to put it in my border folder. You put it in whatever folder you want, you know, even sort of select something like a miscellaneous folder. Put borders, textures, anything you want to add to your pictures, keep in one folder, call something like miscellaneous or whatever you want to call it. The format, Photoshop, yes, that'll be pretty good because Photoshop is a PSD file. That's going to save it in layers, which is just what we want. Layers, there it is. I'm going to click save, and strangely enough it's saying replace. You won't have that, but I've actually done it before. So there it is. Now for my boat. Command Z, Control Z, back it comes. Well, it's not my boat. Couldn't afford the mooring fees. Right, so yeah, I'll own the boat. So there it is, it's back. Now the idea I had was I was going to change the framework and border. I'll be doing that in a separate video again because I thought the whole idea of doing this was to be able to put a title down here. So we're going to take a look at using the text, the type tool, and putting a frame around this. So let's take a look. Coming across, picking up the type tool, the text tool. I'm going to click down, and that's quite small. We're going to come in, 11 points. So I'm going to take it to the biggest one we can so far. I've now gone 72. There it is, that's big. I'm going to put in Joe Blogs. Wasn't the font I was expecting, that's why I went a bit quiet. Never mind. Joe Blogs Photography. Right, it's still Joe Blogs Photography. It is saying us it is layer 2. It has not been committed. In other words, it is not being committed to a text layer or type layer yet. You need to click on this little green tick here to commit any current layers from the edit, or click on the T as well. You'll now notice that layer 2 has been replaced by the text that we've put in. Right, you can see that's gone. It looks pretty good. That's just the sort of thing. It can be the title of the picture. It can be promotional for yourself, whatever way you want to use it. Now there's a few different things you can do. If you notice at the moment my sort of, there it is there, my cursor is the text or the type tool. If we double click on this, it now becomes highlighted. Now when I move it out, you'll notice how it becomes, the text or the type tool has now become the move tool, so we can move this around anywhere in the picture. But there's more. If I just double click it again, so it's still highlighted, I've still got the sort of the move tool cursor, that's what I was going to say. If I press Command or Control, look what happens. It actually puts the transform tool around it, so we can make this as big as you want or as small as you want. And you'll notice the fonts up there in the menu bar busily changing down to 56 pixels and taking them up to, let's go for something like that. That looks pretty good. While we're at it, let's come up and take a look up here. These are all the various fonts. Oh, it's set the font family. Right. So we're on this family of fonts, and if I press the up arrow, keep an eye, don't forget our text is still highlighted. As I press the up arrow, we begin to scroll through the various different fonts. So I'm just going to, now every so often you come across one that goes blank. Probably some far off distant relative who's perhaps not as friendly as the rest of the family. Right, through we go again, just coming through to that one. I like that. That's got sort of like a slightly nice but a bit of a business type look about it. Yep, that looks pretty good there. We're going to change this a bit more. Let's double click again. Keep an eye on the top bar because that's the way it's now changing. You can see we got black in there, that's the color. I'm going to change this to white, and I'm going to sort of just click on that. Brilliant, that's just the sort of look I'm after. We're going to go to layer, we're going to go to layer style, we're going to go to style setting. You didn't think I was going to leave it there, did you? We're going to click on drop shadow. There it is. Bringing the cursor out, notice it is just the arrow cursor. At this stage it is just the arrow cursor. That is quite important because I'm going to just bring this out a little bit like that. The size is a bit like feather in the shadow. We're going to, if the more you bring it out, you see the more, yeah, you might want to do something like that. That looks pretty good, just as a, yeah, looks brilliant. Let's click OK to that. I'll come back to it though. Right, the thing is with all of this, you want to keep it in the center. Now we covered this when we started off. Let's do it again. Command A, Control A selects around the entire picture. If I press V on the keyboard, you pick up the Move tool, or just select the Move tool if you prefer. Go into Align. We're going to go down to Horizontal Center. Now this is going to move it to the center. Click it. It looks pretty central to me, but let's see what it does. There you are. Very, very slightly it moved to the left-hand side, so that has now centered our text. While we've got a selection around the picture, this is where we're going to create the frame. So let's go to Select, Modify. I'm not going to go to Border, I'm going to go to Contract. Now the contract, you can contract it from anything between 1 to 100 pixels. Now it does depend on the file size that you're working on, so with all of these you may have to do a little bit of experimenting depending on the size of the file you're working with. I'm going to go for 100, I'm going to click OK. Now, Photoshop is a mathematical program. You'll probably hear it sort of, you know, the calculators going in the background as it's working out what's 100 pixels, you know, around 4 areas off top bottom as it's working it all out. If you want to go, if you need to go, if your file size is bigger, if you need to go bigger than 100, then just do the first one at 100, then do the second one, take it then to something like 10 pixels, 20 pixels, 50 pixels, whatever, until you get the width that you want. But there it is, it's arrived. Let's go to Select. We're going to go to Inverse, so that's now inverse the selection. We've got a double selection there. We need to put in our default colors. I'm going to press D on the keyboard to restore our default colors, with black being the foreground. Picking up the paint bucket or the fill tool, dragging it between the lines, clicking, and yep, right. Let's just click cancel to that. The reason it's done that is to, and I'm leaving this in, is because we need to do it to a new empty layer. Okay, I forgot that bit, but it does remind you. Oops, moving swiftly on. Filling it with black, in it goes, Command D, Control D. So make sure you are working on a new empty layer. It wouldn't do it, so that was the reason it warned me. Right, Window, Effects, Drop Shadow. Let's go to Bevel. Let's open the Bevel and see what we can do with a bevel. Let's click on this one here and click Apply. Let's see what this does. Exciting. Let's click on this one here and see what this one does. Yeah, riveting. Let's click on this one here and see what that one does. That's better. Got a nice look now to the top there. You can see it's coming right nicely around the angles on the sides. Like that. Great stuff. Right, now we're going to go for Drop Shadow. Clicking on Drop Shadow, this is high. This is high. Make sure you highlight it. That is high. This is low. That is low. That's sort of look I'm after. Yep, so we'll take that and we'll click OK to that. Right. Remember what I said earlier about sort of the way that the cursor looked when we had the drop shadow. Let's just take a look at this for a second. I'm going to come down where it says FX on this here for our text layer. It indicates there's a layer style. If I double click on this, it brings up this dialog box. Now when I move my cursor out, it becomes the Move tool. This will allow us to come down and we can actually move our drop shadow into any direction. I quite like it the way we had it there directly behind it, so I'm not going to bother too much. Perhaps just take the size up a little bit and click OK to that. But what it allows us to do is we can duck back into this. We can double click on the effects here. Now this is the effects for the framework. We're on the shadow. That's the one we're working with at the moment here. If I click down, you'll notice there's the shadow. We can move the shadow around because the effect I'm looking for is to come into this, and I want to take the size out like that and bring this in there. So it's nicely placed right around the outside, so you can actually edit the shadow once you've applied it. Go back in to adjust it, clicking on the effects, and there it is, job done. And that's the second part of the video. We've taken it, we put a sort of your text in. You can still change it, you can still edit it, save it in layers, and we put a framework around the border. Next time we'll be doing something completely different. But until then, it's happy imaging and take care.